Hello everybody, welcome to the video. That's right, it's another episode of Bearing the Marks. And this doesn't really have anything to do with the marks, but it's just kind of an update and an overlook at certain aspects of the wrestling business. And right now, I had to pick this topic because the WWE Wellness Policy, the biggest shovel in WWE, better at burying people than John Cena or Triple H or Vince McMahon or Hulk Hogan or the Clique, is the wellness policy, and it has struck again. And this time, as they slowly release the names of people who have been suspended, it's getting very, very awkward. And here's the thing: drugs and death in wrestling has always made wrestling very awkward. It has actually hurt the business. There was a time there where a generation of wrestlers were dying month by month by month, and most of them were due to drug overdoses. And the ones that survived died horrible, horrible deaths later on in their life. Wrestlers like Jumping Jim Brunzell, Dusty Rhodes, Roddy Piper, they died still relatively early. You know, I guess they're considered old for the wrestling business, which is really sad. When you're in your 60s and 70s, you're considered, oh, for wrestlers, you're old, even though by normal living standards, you should still have at least another good 10, 15 years left in your life. And you know, after that, then you're old and you're just waiting to check out. But WWE has done a lot to combat this because if you remember back in the day, probably the most famous clash of wrestling deaths was the Von Erich family in World Class Championship Wrestling back in the day down in Texas. All the Von Erichs but one died of either a drug overdose, a medical complication, or suicide, and it was mostly drug related. Either way, it was the 80s. It was the 1980s. This dark cloud came over the world. And it was drugs. It wasn't just wrestling. It was everything. But obviously it hits wrestlers harder because, one, they're an exclusive group. There's not a lot of famous wrestlers that have ever existed. There's only a few hundred in the history of the last 150 years of quote-unquote famous wrestlers, okay? So it's a certain group. Two is a wrestler is a nomad, so they're very lawless in the sense that you travel from place to place, town to town, so bad things never have a chance to catch up with you. And two is the lifestyle does require sometimes for some people to rely on drugs, and those drugs are addictive. So what is a little help? Oh, I need a little help, today because I'm a little sore today, or I'm a little worn out, or we just got done doing a really hard tour. What helps them out is drugs, and those drugs are addictive, and those addictions become a problem and later lead to death. So the wellness policy in WWE is put in place, one, to make WWE look good, but two, because it's bad for business, okay? It's not fun and entertaining or cool anymore that wrestlers were dying left and right. At first it was a tragedy, so it was kind of almost like a dark past, and it had a really interesting story, and it was like, oh, that's cool. But then you're like, oh, no, this is real. This is sad that we're inducting dead people into the Hall of Fame. I always tell people this because back when I was wrestling, I remember before one of the shows, we had a VHS tape of the 1990 Royal Rumble, and we just had it off on in the corner, and we were just watching it time to time. And of the 30 participants at this point, this is like 2005, 2006, of the 30 participants in that Royal Rumble, 10 were already dead. I should go back and look at it now because obviously it's probably only increased. But 1/3 of the 1990 participants of the Royal Rumble, 1/3 within 15 years of that Royal Rumble were dead. That's crazy. The wellness policy is there for a reason. And here's the controversy with the wellness policy is right now, the three biggest names that have been slewed and cut away with the wellness policy for 30 days is Alberto Del Rio, Paige, and Eva Marie. Now, what makes that big is Eva Marie was scheduled for Summerslam. And that Summerslam is going to be happening within 24 hours. And she was scheduled to wrestle in it and be on that pay-per-view, and has had a lot of build-up going into that pay-per-view, and has been one of the main storylines on WWE SmackDown for the last 3 weeks. And now she's not even going to be in that match. Now, a lot of people are actually saying, well, is this a work? And I don't think the wellness policy ought to be used as a storyline angle, and I don't believe that WWE is actually doing that, because you wouldn't put an actual storyline angle using the wellness policy, because then that makes something that is supposed to be very real and to make very real shareholders and sponsors happy. You can't discredit the wellness policy in any way, shape, or form. You cannot discredit that it is. So in no way, shape, or form is it a work. With the wellness policy is, if you are subject under the wellness policy, and we'll get into some wrestlers that are not, it is very, very strict. If you fail to give a sample, or if you have a milligram over in your system what they ought to think you should have for anything that you were prescribed, or anything in your system whatsoever, you're popped, you're done. So it's very easy to get suspended with the wellness policy. It's not just, hard drugs. For example, marijuana use is in the wellness policy, and you're thinking, well, marijuana is bad, and it does set a bad example for young people to turn to marijuana and whatnot, but at the same time, it does not inhibit you as bad as other drugs. It's non-fatal, and if anything, it's not a performance-enhancing drug, so it's like, why is marijuana legal? But it is. So I don't know what Eva Marie, Alberto Del Rio, and Paige got busted with the wellness policy. They never disclose that information. The only way you can find that out is if you actually talk to the wrestler themselves. But obviously, there's a lot of speculation with this wellness policy that they tested people so close to SummerSlam, and so far, one of the people that was pop negative for that test, Eva Marie, is not going to be on the match. Now, it's ironic because Eva Marie's storyline has been that she gets an entrance, but for some reason can't wrestle her match, and the audience boos her, and they don't like her, because they generally don't like her. They very much see her as, a glorified porn star, basically, that's a wrestler, and she's there because of her looks, because she doesn't have a personality, and she doesn't have a good ability to wrestle, and she's making the women's division less legitimate. So it's very weird that this is like the ultimate crescendo in that storyline, where she can't even make it to the pay-per-view now because she failed the wellness policy. So it's very ironic. And like I said, I do not think it is a storyline angle. I do not think it is a work, because that wellness policy exists, one, to save wrestlers' lives, but two, WWE is a worldwide public company, and yes, they supply entertainment, but they're very large in philanthropy. It's, charitable organizations. They have the Be a Star. They have the Make-A-Wish. They do shows for the troops and all this. That is a huge part of their revenue stream, is being seen now in a different light, because there was a time during the Attitude Era, I know people love the Attitude Era, there was a time that WWE was going to go out of business, and not because WCW was putting on too much pressure, it's because sponsors were pulling their ads. Buildings were not being rented to them because nobody wanted to be associated with it, because it was much too controversial, it was much too risque, and the whole drug culture of wrestling sure as hell was not happening. So it was hurting the wrestling business, and WWE was going down in a downward spiral. So they really are changing their image, and they have a long way to go in changing their image and changing the practices and standards and culture of the wrestling business and WWE itself. I don't think it'll really start to fully change and be seen as its own wholesome entertainment company until Vince McMahon either steps down, retires, or dies. So, like I said, I do not think that Eva Marie's violation of the wellness policy is a work or an angle, because you can, like I said, you cannot make the wellness policy illegitimate. You cannot. That is bad. That will drive down stock prices, revenue prices. That will drive down buy rates. That's bad. That's very bad. There's a difference between having Brock Lesnar beat Undertaker at WrestleMania 30 and everyone kind of feeling sad afterwards, and there's a difference of reminding people of the death and dark side of wrestling in just such a travesty of so many superstars that have died over the last 20 years, and how WWE has really
curve that. You don't hear about wrestlers dying so much of pills and overdoses anymore. One, because they've all killed each other off by now, but two is because they have gotten help and they have been saved so far, and they've been able to at least hang on a little longer and make it past the curse, I guess you could say. You know, wrestlers like Jake the Snake Roberts and Scott Hall, everyone thought, oh, they're next. They're going to be like Rick Rude and Kurt Hennig, and so far they're alive and kicking in well, and they're healthy. Wrestlers like Goldust, they're healthy. If you ever seen the Netflix movie, The Resurrection of Jake Roberts, you know, you get reminded of how this dark side of wrestling, it's compelling. It's like a train crash. You want to watch it, but at the same time, eventually it makes you feel bad. It makes you feel depressed. It does not make you want to watch wrestling. I mean, there was a time where I could not watch wrestling at all, and for one of the reasons is because wrestling made me feel bad. It had this dark cloud over it, you know. Wrestlers dying is not cool. So the wellness policy is there for a reason. Now, the other two suspensions of the wellness policy is Alberto Del Rio and Paige, and it's been made public knowledge on social media by Paige and Alberto Del Rio, and I think maybe even a little bit of WWE themselves, that they're dating each other. Well, this is where the conspiracy theory comes in, because once they were told they were dating each other and everything was this and that, WWE was very famous for having overreactions about wrestlers dating and messing with storylines. Lana and Rusev getting married in real life made Vince McMahon retaliate against Rusev and Lana, because on TV it was different. And, you know, you want to always blur that line of reality and kayfabe and working and what's real and whatnot. So a lot of people thought when the draft happened this year that when Alberto Del Rio got sent to SmackDown and Paige got stuck on Raw and Paige wasn't wrestling forever. I mean, Paige has only been on TV for the last couple months, the last few months, maybe twice, and both times she actually beat Charlotte at the time, who was the champion. So it was like, well, what's going on with Paige on television? But Paige, I think, was transitioning more into kind of like Corey Graves, maybe not the same way because Corey Graves is injured and can no longer wrestle, but more of a behind out of the ring personality, you know, because Paige does have a personality. People gravitate towards her. She is definitely a unique character and individual, and there are people in the world that are like that and can relate to Paige. You know, they think Paige is cool. You know, this is why Paige is over, because she's quote unquote the anti-diva, you know. But either way, so people thought, oh, the draft was in a way to split them up, and then they both get popped for the wellness policy, and Paige being tested under wellness policy currently is kind of like funny, because it's like, why would you test her when she hasn't wrestled a match in God knows how long, and she's been out injured for God knows how long? Why would you even test her in the first place? So it's kind of funny that she even got tested, but then of course she came back negative, and so did Alberto Del Rio. So they're both suspended for 30 days, which is like, in a way, you could say, oh, WWE is trying to punish them. Well, this is true, but Paige was already off of TV. She was on social media and other things with WWE, but she was already off of TV. And Alberto Del Rio was pretty much off of TV too. He was a support guy. He was a job guy. He was a hand in the ring. He's a very good wrestler, and he still has a name, and he's still very over, but he was there developing other workers. So them being off TV, that didn't really hurt them. And if anything, now they have 30 days of being together instead of one being on one travel schedule and the other one being on another travel schedule. So I don't think necessarily the wellness policy is now WWE's new weapon to push storylines or to get rid of wrestlers, because there was also the controversy with Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns, the world champion, got busted, and they were like, oh, wow, he's the golden boy, and he got suspended for 30 days. And many people thought at the time it was so unbelievable that it was once again a storyline and that they were going to turn him heel or something coming back from his wellness policy violation. They did change his character minute and whatnot, but they didn't like revamp Roman Reigns. He came back like nothing happened, and he's right back in the saddle of WWE. Is he the main star right now? No, he's working his way back up the roster. But once again, it comes back to, I don't think the WWE is going to use the wellness policy to punish other wrestlers. I don't think they're going to use it as a marketing tool, and I don't think they're going to use it in storyline angles. It's still a very real policy. And lastly, I just want to touch up on the policy is we already covered why the policy exists, but we obviously know that at the same time that they're suspending Eva Marie, Alberto Del Rio, and Paige for the wellness policy, you have a person that's going to be wrestling on the Summerslam card named Brock Lesnar, who has a history of failing drug tests left and right and has a history of steroid use and growth hormone use and what other drug use, okay? Brock Lesnar is a once-in-a-lifetime athlete. He is a freak. Don't get me wrong. He doesn't necessarily need all those enhancements, but that's just the way a professional athlete is nowadays. If you think that professional athletes are not on the most pinnacle training regimens, and that includes performance-enhancing drugs, legal and illegal, you're dumb, you're stupid. There's too much money on the line in professional athletics these days for you not to take that risk. Alex Rodriguez just retired from American baseball. He made almost $500 million just in his contract for playing baseball, in his time playing baseball by the time he retired. That's not including endorsement deals and other things, or trading cards or whatever, or getting Nike sponsorships. That's just from playing the game, and he's been busted and suspended numerous times for steroids. It's like, of course you're going to take steroids. There's $90 million on the line, and they expect you to play at this level and do this good to warrant that kind of money. You know, you're going to take steroids. The pressure is on to take steroids. In WWE, there's definitely a pressure to take steroids because, one, the medical properties of them. They help you heal faster. That's all steroids do. They don't give you more muscle. They don't do all these magical things. They don't make you stronger. What they do is, after you've had injuries or worked out, and working out, you're tearing muscle fibers, it allows you to heal faster. Thus, you can either keep up with the regimen that you're doing, aka the road and travel schedule, or you can work out more and kill your muscles more while training. That's what steroids do for you. So steroids do have medical benefits. However, they are illegal. Back in the 80s, when the Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan and every wrestler and their mother was on steroids, they were legal. You could get them prescribed by a doctor. But since then, steroids have become illegal. So you have Brock Lesnar, who does not get tested under the WWE Wellness Policy because he's considered a part-time performer. And a lot of people, myself included, are thinking, what the hell does that fucking matter? Okay? Whether he wrestles one match or two matches a year, he still gets promotion. He still gets put on posters and marquees. He still gets TV time. He still wrestles like 10 matches a year, maybe throughout the year. Still, yes, he's part-time, but he's still a huge part of that company. He's not a one-and-done type of guy. He's not a local jobber coming in to work one match on a house show. He's not a local jobber that's getting squashed on TV. He's not The Rock, who appears maybe once or twice a year, and you're lucky if he even throws a punch in the ring. He is a wrestler. He wrestles matches. He gets promoted. He gets put on marquees, the whole nine, like I just got done saying, okay? He has Paul Heyman. He has a manager. He gets put in the storylines, okay? Brock Lesnar deserves to be put under that wellness policy. And recently, this year, Triple H got taken out from that wellness policy. He did not renew a performance contract with WWE. He works for WWE, obviously, in the NXT Center and talent relations and all this, but he's not considered a wrestler. So if Triple H ever wants to wrestle another match, he can sign a release like Brock Lesnar sometimes does, or local performers do, or a lot of big stars that come in to do a few angles do. You know, like if they bring a big star back for the Royal Rumble, I don't know, someone like Diamond Dallas Page or something like that. They bring it back for the Royal Rumble. They don't get tested, and they don't have a contract. They just have a release, basically. It's a much smaller contract, basically saying that you agree to wrestle for WWE tonight, and they're allowed to use your likeness on television, blah, 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 the whole 9 yards, just for that night. Triple H is now exempt from the wellness policy, and you got to stop and think to yourself, Triple H has never tested negative on the wellness policy. John Cena has never tested negative on the wellness policy. Chris Jericho has never tested negative on the wellness policy. Now, you look at these guys and you're like, well, yeah, they're just, they're not into that. They're not into drugs and steroids. Bullshit. Triple H isn't in the fucking steroids? Yeah, okay, whatever. Okay, Chris Masters got made fun of by Triple H on TV because he lost 50 pounds. Because Masters had to stop taking steroids. But Triple H has never been on fucking steroids. Triple H is a fucking bodybuilder by trade. Don't tell me Triple H has not been on steroids his whole fucking life. It's bullshit to say that he hasn't. In fact, after the self-destruction of the Ultimate Warrior DVD was released, Ultimate Warrior obviously released a statement concerning that DVD, and one of the things he attacked was Triple H's fucking steroid use. And how if he ever got drug tested for steroids, that he would test positive, because obviously Ultimate Warrior did steroids, and anyone who's ever done steroids or worked out in a gym can look at Triple H and say, you're on steroids, you have a steroids body, don't give me that bullshit. But obviously, political shenanigans being what they are, you've always avoided drug testing, or you've always been, quote-unquote, on vacation during drug testing and all this. Triple H has dodged so many bullets with the steroid testing policy, it's not even funny, and obviously it does not apply to him because he's more than a big star. That's the thing, is he's not just a money-making star, he's somebody in the company, okay? Think about this. Vince McMahon, does he get tested for steroids? Well, no, he's not a performer. Vince McMahon's on fucking steroids. The guy's 70 years old and fucking built like a 25-year-old Arnold Schwarzenegger still, okay? That takes steroids. That takes synthetic testosterone. So don't tell me he's not on steroids. John Cena. Now, honestly, in my honest opinion, I've watched John Cena since Ohio Valley Wrestling. I do not think John Cena is on steroids. I really do not think this. Now you're thinking, well, what the hell? How could he not be? Because this is the way he's shaped, formed, and his whole life. John Cena, you can tell, has hit genetic potential. Everyone has genetic potential. Whatever's in their DNA, he hit that. So all he has to do is maintain that. Triple H hit that, and then all of a sudden got bigger and puffier, bigger and puffier, bigger and puffier, and then all of a sudden got called out by the Ultimate Warrior, and all of a sudden got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And you could tell Triple H is no longer on steroids as much as he used to be because he's older, obviously, so he's not able to produce as much testosterone to help his muscles be as toned as they are. Plus, he's obviously not a professional wrestler full-time anymore, so he does not need to work out as much as he does. Which also brings me back to why Vince McMahon should not look like the way he looks like, even though he's still older. Vince McMahon is obviously on steroids. So I do not think John Cena is. Chris Jericho has never been busted by the wellness policy, and Chris Jericho has a history of being in wrestling with pain-killing pills and drugs and steroids himself. In fact, he got busted once with the WWE steroid policy, and he was able to weasel his way out of it, because he came back and his testosterone levels were too high, quote-unquote, for natural production, i.e. synthetic testosterone or testosterone-boosting chemicals in your body, a.k.a. that's what steroids are. It's about testosterone, because testosterone is the hormone in your body that's related to building muscle and whatnot. Hence is why female bodybuilders end up looking very masculine if they choose to take steroids. This is why Chyna, when she was at her physical peak, looked very masculine until she had a lot of plastic surgery to make her look feminine again, because her and Triple H were abusing steroids. If you ever seen Chyna's sex tape, I mean, we all saw the size clitoris of Chyna. That's what happens when women take steroids, okay? So Chyna was on steroids, Triple H was on steroids, and then Jericho gets popped for steroids. And you could tell when Jericho was on steroids, it was like during his last world title run, because just the way he was built and puffing out and all of a sudden, whatever. Once again, Chris Jericho, when he was in WCW, was a scrawny little cruiserweight. He gets to WWE, he's a scrawny little cruiserweight, and all of a sudden he's like beefed out a little more. And it's okay to beef out, but as you get older, like I said, it's harder. So either way, he tested negative for too high of a testosterone level. He found a fucking doctor that said, well, some people have higher testosterone. Here's your doctor's note, Chris Jericho. And then he was able to avoid suspension. And it's like, nobody has a fucking testosterone level that's... Okay, here's the thing. On these medical... I've been tested plenty of times for steroids and for drugs and athletic testing, performance-enhancing drugs and whatnot. The levels to quote-unquote fail are actually very high For example, if I smoked marijuana a month ago, it might show up in my drug test, but it's not going to have enough effect to, quote unquote, have me fail that drug test. If I show them that I'm on a prescription medication for something, they can kind of figure out what's about the most you would have in your system at any given point in time, as long as you don't go past that. Same with steroids is you get off and on steroid cycles, and the reason you do this is, one, prolonged steroids 24/7 is bad for you, but two, is so you can avoid testing negative. To fail one of those testosterone tests in athletic testing, and I don't know the exact wellness policy that WWE uses, but I know in my case, it was if you had 6 to 11 or more greater times, so 600 to 1100% more times testosterone in your body at any given time, you would fail, and you would be subject to the reprimand of whoever was testing you. Okay? Because here's the thing. You can have high testosterone. There are things you can naturally do to boost your testosterone. People who are athletes usually have higher testosterone anyway because their body is used to producing a lot of testosterone. You're eating foods and exercising in a way to maximize your testosterone because testosterone, like I said, is the most important chemical in the body, along with many others, to build muscle and recover muscle and help your cardiovascular system and your respiratory system, the whole nine, okay? So to fail, you need to get a very, very, very unusual high amount of testosterone. Like I said, you can double your normal capacity of testosterone production in your body just with certain workout regimens and whatever, okay? You can even triple it, okay? People like Lance Armstrong, even though he obviously tested negative for being clean and whatnot, but Olympic athletes, world-class athletes like professional bikers and all this, those guys can even have triple production of testosterone in their body just because of the training regimen they do. So if you want to triple that again, that's impossible. Okay? No human being on the planet could do that. If you fail one of those wellness policies, so if you have 6 to 11 times more testosterone in your body than is just pretty much possible, okay, without artificial means, you're a fucking freak. If Chris Jericho was able to produce that much testosterone, okay, here's the thing. One, he's never been injured, okay? Never. Grant you, he's wrestled off and on a lot over his later years in his career, and he doesn't do death-defying shit. He's a very smart man, but he's never been injured. Steroids really do help with that, with injuries, little injuries. At the same time, if you're like Batista or Triple H or Kevin Nash, you will tear muscles like crazy when you're on steroids, and that's a whole other subject about what steroids do to your body. But, okay, if he was able to produce that much testosterone, then why the hell doesn't he look like John Cena? Why the hell does he not look like Bobby Lashley? Why the hell does he not look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Incredible Hulk, or whatever? If he's able to naturally produce that much testosterone, like he even admits that a doctor said, just so he could get off his fucking violation policy, why doesn't he fucking look like he does then? Okay, that doesn't make any sense. So yes, Chris Jericho has failed the fucking wellness policy. He just never got suspended. So it obviously, like anything, there's politics involved with the wellness policy. Is it real to the people that it applies to? Yes. Is it real to the people it does not apply to, such as Brock Lesnar, Triple H, John Cena, Chris Jericho? No, it does not fucking matter. Now, Roman Reigns getting popped was a way to make the policy more legitimate, and he lost a lot of money, and he let a lot of people down doing that. So it's like, whoa. But at the same time, you got to remember, Roman Reigns is still early in his career, and he's still not as over as John Cena. He's still not as over as Chris Jericho, and he's still not as over as Triple H or any of those guys, and he probably never will be, to be honest. I mean, there is a glass ceiling there. I don't see him getting mega stardom within the next 2 years. It took John Cena over 10 years to become the megastar that he is, and people still don't like him, but, you know, enough people obviously like him now that he's, you know, he's making bank, he's making money. I don't see Roman Reigns doing anything within the next 1 or 2 years. He's going to be like John Cena. It's going to take 10 years for him to get that over, if he ever gets that over again. This is the way the direction of WWE and everything is going. I don't see that not happening until much later. So the wellness policy is total fucking bullshit for some wrestlers. But for everyone that is covered under that umbrella, it is very real. And at the same time, WWE expects these guys to be clean, but expects them to stay in a certain condition and, wrestle the matches and make the towns and all this shit. And grant you, the travel schedule is still grueling, but, travel has become a lot easier than back in the day. You have buses, RVs, better commercial ways of traveling, more efficient ways of traveling. So things are better that way. But for the people that the wellness policy is applicable to, very, very, very real. But for the people that is not applicable to, it's fucking bullshit. Brock Lesnar needs to be on the fucking wellness policy, and he needs to at least take one test with WWE and show that he passes. He needs to do that, because right now, the longer Brock Lesnar goes untested, and what everyone already knows what he already does, it's going to hurt him, it's going to hurt the WWE, and they're just going to have to get rid of him, because everyone's going to start not liking this guy anymore because there's too much controversy surrounding him. The mainstream media is going to once again start pointing the finger at WWE for harboring drug users, harboring bad people, harboring steroid users all over again, and they're going to have a freaking PR disaster on their hands. So from what you can take away with this is, yes, the wellness policy is bullshit for those people who don't need to be tested. It is bullshit for the people that are tested and are able to get away with it. And it's not necessarily bullshit, but there is a lot of strange things that are happening lately with the wellness policy, i.e. Roman Reigns, Paige, Alberto Del Rio, and then Eva Marie scheduled to be on a pay-per-view and getting suspended 24 hours before it when her storyline is with it. It's just a really weird, tough situation. The wellness policy needs to stay, because, quite frankly, after these wrestlers have their time and they're done with WWE, we don't want to keep finding them dead in motel rooms at 40, 50 years old of drug overdoses, cocaine, alcoholism, whatever. We don't want to go back to that, okay? That was bad for the business. That's bad for the kids that watch. That is bad for everybody involved. It's bad for the wrestlers' families. So WWE is doing the right thing by instituting a wellness policy and having better measures of helping them deal with the travel. But at the same time, maybe WWE doesn't need to fucking make it so fucking grueling to work there that you do need to do as many steroids and as freaking prescription drugs as you need to do. I mean, maybe WWE is at fault for doing that, for pushing these guys like fucking machines. Everyone's like, oh, Vince McMahon wouldn't ask you to do anything that he wouldn't do himself. Vince McMahon's on fucking steroids, but he doesn't have to get tested, but he'll sure as hell fire you if you are. Vince McMahon is probably on a lot of fucking drugs now that he's older, able to fucking do his day-to-day, and Vince McMahon doesn't fucking wrestle 300 days a fucking year and isn't on the road 300 fucking days a year. Yes, he puts a lot of hours in and he fucking works out in a gym, but he is not a fucking professional wrestler, nor has he ever has been. So don't say that he would do it when he's never actually done it. He's expecting other people to fucking do it. He's pushing these other people to fucking do it and then holding them accountable when they try to meet his fucking standards. And if you don't meet his standards, he fires you. And if you do something to meet his standards, but you have to cheat to do it because his standards are fucking unreasonable, then he fucking fires you that way. So when everyone's like, "Oh, don't blame Vince McMahon, don't blame WWE for all these drug issues with wrestlers," yeah, I will fucking blame them, okay? When you fucking create a monopoly in the fucking wrestling business, where you are the biggest fucking draw to work at in the wrestling business, and people to keep up with that fucking grueling, fucking demanding expectations that they put on you, resort to these types of tactics, because you're going to fire them if they don't, and you're going to fire them if they do, well, they might as well fucking take the risk and fucking at least make their money and do it. Yeah, you are responsible. There is a moral responsibility there on behalf of Vince McMahon and his company, what he's fucking doing to people. I think the wellness policy is a start. I think the no chair shots to a head policy is a start. No super risky, dangerous deathcore matches is a start for WWE. I really do think it's a start. But I still think that this proves it has a long way to go. Because if the wellness policy was working, we would eventually trickle down on the amount of suspensions we'd be seeing. Well, that was my rant on this episode of Burying Marks. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, do Twitter, whatever. You can follow me at Benjamin8213 on Twitter. Starting to get back into YouTube, starting to get back into social media, and we got a lot more to cover. So hopefully you enjoy, and hopefully we stay tuned for Summerslam. I'm not going to do a predictions video. I might do an aftermath video. I'll tell you right now, AJ Styles is going to beat John Cena. Whether it is clean or not, I don't know. but AJ Styles wins. That's about all I can tell you. And thanks a lot for listening, guys, and we'll catch you after Raw on Monday.